Baby girl, I'm built different. Ain't shit about me average. Lazy motherfucker, I suffocate if I'm stagnant. Confident, I will never take your bitch, boy, I don't want her. She don't cook, clean, or pray for you. I'm sorry, that ain't no woman, and I'm tired of it. No tolerance for toilet shit. That man talkative. Need a better ass whooping than his father did. I'm confident. I'm a savage, not a scavenger. Baby, that ain't Febreze. What you smell is dry lavender. I'm a warrior in the garden, not a gardener in the war. No shortage, I ain't starving. Get the harvest from the soil. To carry out your call and make you a target in this world. So this part of the song go out to all the boys and girls. It go, black man, get your cash. Get it fast, but they blast at you. This your chance. Remember who you are and don't let this world change you. If you ever wanna burn this whole shit down, I don't blame you. Come here. The reason they don't like you is fair. Claim supreme, but wanna be just like you. It's clear. They want the hips, the lips, the hair, the voice, the walk, the look. They stare. Take one moment. Look at yourself in the mirror. Built different. Cut from a cloth they couldn't wear. Prepare for history to repeat, but look no further. I am the light-skinned Nat Turner. Bitch, I'm built different. Yeah. Put a little. Built different. Built different. Head of my shoe, got a key by the door. Tell my dad to bye-bye. Tell the bus that moving. It's hard to find.
We was born into a system designed to keep us behind, but knowledge is power, keep that in mind. Pay attention to the road and the signs. You gon' shine, you gon' know when it's time. We was born into oppression, threw us in them jails, waist deep in depression. Art of deception, knowledge is a weapon. They even took that away, it costs for a lesson. School prices go up, kids don't show up. Gang signs get thrown up, progression getting slowed up. Politicians speak on it, they acting like they know us. They just wanna control us with the lies that they told us. And I don't stand for it. Every other day, got a body on the camcorder, and we don't get no damn order. And Flint ain't get no damn water. On the gram, watch another black man slaughtered. Either that or the can, they had a plan for it. They stopped slavery and opened prisons, and we all know religion causes division. You gotta see the vision and make a decision. Grew up in the streets, so the mission, they know that I'm with it. I feel like Nat Turner on the back burner, waiting for my time to rise. Started on the crack corner. We ain't have nothing but a pack on us. Police spin the block, they was trying to snap on us. Mama rent due, he try and get that stack for. But D's caught him round the corner with that crack on him.
Through the hell and rain, heard him say it won't be the same. Reason why we praise, cause we know we'll find better days. Soaring the heaven gates, and we won't be late. Soaring the heaven gates, and we won't be late.
Hey yo, I'm numb to the pain, scarred by the game, reminiscing on them days like a slave locked in a cage. It's real, I just write how I feel. Represent for the youngest, cause I know how they feel. All them nights, no meals, you just mad that your tummy aches. So you on the streets grinding, try and get another plate. I know, I was right there selling sour, trying to save money for some studio hours.
Through the hell and rain, heard him say it won't be the same. Reason why we praise, cause we know we'll find better days. Soaring the heaven gates, and we won't be late. Soaring the heaven gates, and we won't be late.
What you know about taking losses? If the defense clip your mans, you gotta change your offense. Enslaved people still line, it's just a different auction. Switch the whips, the nightsticks, a metal guarded fortress. Every block stay cautious, spiritually it gets me nauseous. Fighting off darkly forces, knowing to press my conscience. Knowing this life ain't awesome, skips what's important. Crack came in handing every black person a coffin. Fear to lay my offspring, I see death often. Babies having babies, government will preach abortion. 1 meal a day, I portion like 3 courses. To break it down, Chuck Norris, you gotta be a tourist. We adapt and fit resources. Watch our kids, we passing torches. If we ever get endorsements, fuck them up on college courses. Yes, the process metamorphed this legacy, the only fortune. Jealousy is not important. What for all to split our portions?
I'm just trying to stay alive. I'm just trying to survive.
Peace, peace, peace. Resurrect. Resurrect. Flee the land. Free the land. Let me cut this one off. We are tapping in. Everybody share the live. Share the live. It's Corey with H.O.L.L.A. Shout out to everybody that's tuning in. We got a special show today. A quick special report. We got one of our elders from the Kabaka, Alice and Lukman Institute, one of our elders of H.O.L.L.A, one of our elders of the non-traditional approach joining us today. So share the live. You don't want to miss this. We got an important conversation talking about the crucifixion of Nat Turner again. So everybody share the live, tune in. We got some important information that we want to share with people about an action going on today and tomorrow. So share the live. We're gonna start off with a quick libation, and then we get going. You know, we want to make sure that we bring the ancestors in a strong way for this sacred conversation. And we want this conversation to be meaningful in the world. This libation, you know, African people, we've been doing libation since the beginning of our times, man. We don't even got dates on how long we've been doing libations. Since the waters of none moved, you know, since the movement of waters of none. But libations are not only just the pouring of water or liquids or spirit, but it could be, you know, it could be vibrations. It could be the playing of the drum. It could be spoken word. So this libation here we're gonna do as a spoken word. This poem is called "This Is for Our Ancestors." So the poem in itself is a commemoration and a celebration of our ancestors. Ashe.
Ashe.
I said, this is for our ancestors. I said, this is for your ancestors. I said, this is for our ancestors, particularly the ones that stand with us and plan with us. We talking about a pedagogy of patience. They still waiting for your transformation and for you to heal from all the steel blazing and generation after generation of living out your own plantation. We said that was for the ancestors. Shout out to all of our ancestors and our legacy and our family and our movement that struggled for Black liberation. Our ancestors that gave us the NTA. Our ancestors that fought to get us off the plantation. Our ancestors that fought before we got on the plantation. Our ancestors that fought when they tried to take us from the land. Our ancestors that developed sciences, family culture, structures, and our culture. We want to say ashe to that and many more that wasn't named. Asheo. So with that being said, man, we are going to bring on our special guest, Baba Hassan, one of our elders from the Greenhaven think tank. Baba Hassan is one of our teachers. He's been teaching definitely since he's been in prison, if not before then. Built programs in prison, Black studies, part of developing the 7 neighborhood study, and built a lot of work with men, you know, in other programs from Exodus. Family man, stayed committed to his family while in prison, was able to continue growing himself and keep his family while he was in prison. And shout out to his family and to his family to hold it down with him. And he's still educating, still teaching. You know, we right now studying the Nguzu Saba with Baba Hassan, talking about African culture. Baba Hassan helped Dr. Ori, like many other elders, write the book Tip of the Spear. Gave Dr. Ori many files to study. He constantly give us references to books that we should continue studying. So Baba Hassan is a historian in our communities from many sectors, not just because he studied, but because he lived a life, because he's comrades with people who organized, and he's still doing that work. So without no further ado, Baba Hassan, how you doing, man? Welcome for joining the platform. How you feeling today?
I'm great, and glad to be a part of this. Glad that you could make this available, and glad that you got men in the group, partnerships associated with men who are about this work. I love that.
Ashe, Ashe. And we want to give a quick shout out to brother Isaac Quarterly on the ones, twos, keeping this live going, and who always support us. So shout out to Isaac Quarterly in the AME Church formation on 116th Street in Madison. Baba Hassan, let's get right into this. So, before we get into that, we got some quick updates. Well, we'll come back to that. We wanted to kind of have this conversation today because a couple of weeks ago, you reminded us of a conversation that you had last year around this time. And you was talking about a play, and we want you to hear more about that. But before that, you've shared many lessons with H.O.L.L.A and with us about Nat Turner. You talked about the work you did in prison, developing curriculum around Nat Turner, and how you had to even disguise Nat Turner in prison because you didn't want the prison administration to understand the kind of curriculum you was developing. Let us know, what is this conversation about around Nat Turner in short, but also let us know who is Nat Turner, to you, and why is this important?
All right, great. First of all, I think Nat is one of the unsung Black heroes, maybe the most unsung, relating to the work that he did. He did an awful lot of work in a couple of years. I mean, his whole life was devoted towards contemplation of slavery, whether it was right or wrong, being led by the Bible, because he was one of the few slaves that was allowed to taught to read, and because he could read the Bible. They thought he was just going to be a preacher and teach the Pauline gospel, slaves obey your master. And Nat was not that kind of slave. So he kind of manifested himself when he was 30 years old, 31 years old, when he initiated the rebellion. But I want to say that before that, before even getting to that part, I think that Nat is important because we don't often connect Nat with contemporary history. Even when we know about Nat, those of us who know about him do not connect him with contemporary history. If it were not for Nat, all of the things that we enjoy in the modern, the latitude we have in prisons now, the telephones, et cetera, when I write the visits that we have, the touch visits, because before 1971, there were no touch visits in state prisons. You met behind a big screen or big glass. Nat is responsible for that through George Jackson, because George modeled himself after Nat. And in fact, he waited until August 21st before he sprang his own revolution or rebellion in prison. And because of that rebellion, it sparked Attica. Because of Attica, the prison reforms came in. So we have to make that connection. There's no divide between them. It's a direct connection. We don't often say that. Even those of us who know about George, we don't see that connection. We don't know the reason why George waited until August to do what he did. Not just August, but that exact date, August 21st. And if you read his literature, he always gives Nat a shout out. George was about action. He liked to talk. He liked to read. He was well read. Did a great job on himself, but primarily because of his inspiration that came from Nat Turner. Remember, George came to jail when he was 17. He left us when he was 29. So in those 12 years, he got the equivalent of a PhD on his own. There was no internal school program, etc. When he did that, just reading books, not just reading books, studying those books. So he studied Nat. There was not much to read about Nat except for the Confessions of Nat Turner, which was done by a lawyer after Nat was arrested. Nat was arrested on October 30th, 1831, and he was executed November 11 days later. Ironically, it's the date that we call Veterans Day now. We should always look at Veterans Day as our day for Nat. Should be Nat Turner Day. Okay. His insurgency started August 21st. It only lasted 2 days, and then he was a fugitive for the next 9 weeks. He was hiding in the woods, in the swamps, etc. Right until he was arrested. But during that time, he had a lot of soul searching. We can deduce that from what he said during the interview with the lawyer, things that were going on in his head, why he allowed himself to be captured. He didn't really allow himself to be captured. We can only imagine that he wasn't eating for 9 weeks because the whole area was surrounded, not just with the plantation owners and farmers or whatnot, right? But with military. Remember, the United States sent 3 regiments to the Chesapeake and Southampton area and 2 battleships in the Chesapeake Bay because they assumed uh, that the rebellion was going to spread, and they didn't want it to spread. They were going to contain it. So Nat was very inhibited in terms of his movement. When he came out of that, uh, October 30th, a few days later, he was interviewed by a lawyer, by a local lawyer. And that's the only time that we have direct contact with Nat's words. Everything else is hearsay. What people said Nat said, or what they heard that he said. Coming from the lawyer, if we can accept everything the lawyer said, is Nat's feelings about everything. He was never apologetic. He was totally unapologetic. Even though he knew the kind of death he was going to face with them. People got horrific, were killed horrifically just for running away or talking back to crackers. Imagine what he knew he was going to face after being responsible for killing damn near 60 white people. He knew he was going to die a horrific death. So I think a lot of people in confronted with that would try to do something to like mitigate the kind of suffering that he was going to be confronted with, that he thought he was going to be confronted with. He didn't do that. He was always a stand-up individual. When they talked about, well, let me jump for a moment. The person who wrote this play, in an interview, Corey, you sent me the interview last night. I'd never seen the interview before.
Before you go there, Baba, do you want to go
Yeah.
there now? Can I ask you another question about Nat, or you want to go right there now and come back?
No, ask the question.
I want to just, I love how you broke down Nat, because this is a chance for us to learn about Nat Turner, definitely when people are making fake history. So thank you for sharing that wisdom. Anything else you want to add about Nat Turner? But I also want to specifically ask, how did you learn about Nat Turner, and what are some of the works you have done around Nat Turner? Or what works you hope other people continue to do around Nat Turner? But I'd love to hear about some of the works you have already done around Nat Turner and how you keep Nat Turner legacy going on your own, and why is this so important to you right before we get to talking about the play?
Okay. So I learned about Nat through street corner orators. When I grew up in the mid 50s and early 60s, a lot of our information came from what we call street corner orators. These were men who primarily were fixtures on the corners, major street corners like 125th Street and 135th Street, Adam Clayton Powell Boulevard, known as 7th Avenue, then and Lenox Avenue and 8th Avenue, all up and down that corner. They were very competitive. There might have been a dozen street corner orators. You had your option of what corner did you want to go to, and it would be maybe a symbol, depending on who it was, anywhere from like 30 to 100 people. Some people were more popular than others. So I learned about Nat by listening to those street corner orators. And then I was directed to Schomburg Library, which was a small single building at the time. And I think the pamphlet was 100 Amazing Facts About Negroes by J.A. Rogers, and he talked about Nat Turner. So I was amazed because I'd never heard anything like that. No slave. I heard about slave rebellions, but it was just a dream that was really, really rebelling like that. I had no knowledge of that. I'm not saying I was the only one. I guess most of the kids in my neighborhood did not know that, but they weren't really interested. Not like that. They didn't really. I was like awed and inspired by him. So fast forward going to prison, when I had the latitude to do programs there without being undermined by the staff there, I was allowed a little latitude to make my own programs. I would always try to bring that into it, not just talk about traditional Black history or Negro history at the time, bring that into it. We were allowed to talk about Sojourner Truth and Harriet Tubman, but not allowed to talk about Nat Turner. Even some brothers, when they knew about Nat Turner, when I talked about him, they would have like one foot pointed towards the door saying, "We getting ready to get out of here because I know it's going to be a problem. You're going to get locked up for saying this," or sort of whatever, right? Until we got comfortable with that name, comfortable not just with the name, but with the behavior, with Nat's behavior. We didn't have to go back to Africa to find a real rebel. You know, we didn't have to um, look at Mao Zedong, which we did at the time, and Ho Chi Minh, and rebels from other countries. We had our own rebel, and none like him. Uh, there were other people who struggled to do what Nat did, but they didn't make as big as much noise as Nat did. They weren't able to do that, and Nat was almost cut short in his attempt to do it. However, he did it, and it inspired me, and that inspiration. Because I knew about Nat Turner when I first heard about George Jackson through his letters and whatnot, and he mentioned that, I automatically took on um, to George. I automatically respected him even before his death. What his brother did the year before he passed, the year before I don't know why I say passed. Like that's like kind of like had an illness and just passed away before he was murdered.
I
So,
say,
and his brother murdered at the same time, and Nat murdered at the same time. So I respected that kind of behavior and attitude, and I always look for that in other Black people in our struggle. I think that's very important to find that, because not finding that means that we are reduced to thinking that the most radical things we did that was done by a Black rebel was maybe what Harriet did, you know, with a shotgun and a pistol, etc., going down south and liberating slaves. That was a great thing she did. She risked her life. Um, and her family, everything she did that. She made several trips, we know that. But that's not the most radical thing that was done. But they want to keep us with Harriet. You know, proposed to put Harriet on money. They ain't gonna put that on no money. Even they did Trump stop that. He's not putting her on the $20 bill like it was talked about during a previous administration. But the fact that they could even say that about her means in their mind she's safe because she ain't killed nobody. You know, kill somebody, if you're a Black person and kill somebody, you automatically get crazy or unhinged in some way. You got to be crazy to kill a white man, to kill a white person. That's the way they look at it. And I think that's in direct contrast to what happens when we see Indians. We know about a lot of Indians who kill everybody. Geronimo, Cochise, Sitting Bull, Chief Joseph, they kill white people. They make movies about them and they celebrate them. We can't find a single Black person who killed white people that they celebrate. You know, something they don't allow that. And Black people know that they don't allow that. Black movie producers and directors, they know that. So they don't produce a script like that. They know it's not going to be green lighted. They know that. We don't get books like that. The church knows that Nat was a preacher, but they won't even say Nat's name in the church. You wouldn't know he was a preacher. And that's evidence that he was a preacher. White folks acknowledge that he was a preacher. They're sorry they allowed him to preach, but they acknowledge that he was a preacher. But the church is so intimidated by the name of Nat Turner that you will rarely hear anything. Maybe a few people like a Reverend Cleve or Reverend Daughtry in Brooklyn, Cleveland, in Detroit. You know, they're far and few in between who will mention Nat Turner. Not enough. Even the boldest preachers, even the most articulate preachers that are good in economics, good in organizing, etc., they're not going to say Nat Turner. It's almost like the police know, Black police know now that you don't shoot a white man. You don't shoot a white man no matter what he does, unless your partner, your police partner is white and he initiates the shot. They know not to shoot white people. It's not written anywhere, but they know that. It's now almost like it's in uh, comes with the license with the gun and the training. Never stated, but always demanded. You better not shoot a white man. You have a serious reason for shooting a white man. So, and they know, so similarly, they know not to talk about Nat Turner. Do not talk about Nat Turner. It's not mentioned anywhere that you can't teach about Nat Turner, but they never do it. So we know it's somewhere. Black teachers know it and they won't say, no, we talk about it. You don't talk about him. During the Black History Month or any other month, you don't talk about Nat. And that's because he was a brazen Negro, brazen Black man. And because he was so brazen, it's been I guess, an indelible imprint in most educators' minds. You know, that's a path that you don't cross. You don't talk about Nat Turner. We ain't even going to talk about that. I try to engage teachers about that in my adulthood about Nat Turner, and they refuse to do it. They refuse. They find something else to talk about. They don't say I don't want to talk about it, but they change the conversation. You know, sometimes in a nice way, sometimes in an abrupt way. I've had people just get up and leave like they had something to do and had a phone call and whatever, right? I don't know if they were thinking that I was trying to lead them into something. I'm just talking about why is not in the curriculum. You know, how could you be teaching the width and breadth of Black culture and Black history and forget to mention somebody like that? And Roots was the most celebrated documentary, it wasn't documentary, most celebrated TV series up until maybe like the 90s or something. It came out in the 70s. When they got to the part about Nat Turner, it lasted about 5 seconds. You need to revisit Roots and see that. 5 seconds, they said Nat Turner something and it's gone. Nothing more. You know, not what he did. And it was just like some uh somebody said, well, we gotta mention him. Just say this, give him his 3 seconds and we out. So nobody can say that we didn't mention him. We spend an inordinate time with other people, especially with people like Frederick Douglass. Fred was a good guy. You know, he did a lot of good things, but he wasn't Nat Turner. Nat, um, this is how powerful Nat is. Harriet Beecher Stowe, the writer who wrote Uncle Tom's Cabin, is credited as being one of the spark plugs for the Civil War. So is John Brown. Okay, Harriet Beecher Stowe was influenced by Nat Turner. She wrote another book subsequent to Uncle Tom's Cabin called Dread, and the character in there was patterned after Nat Turner. John Brown patterned his behavior, his whole rebellion was based on the strategy of Nat. You know, let me get to an arsenal, or take the guns and spread the guns. And I think John Brown was a serious white man. I'm not taking anything from him. I believe, like Malcolm would say, there are two kinds of white people, John Brown and them other clowns. I believe that John Brown was a real serious individual, you know, and I stand on that. However, the Union Army used to sing songs about John Brown. John Brown's body lies a mourning in his grave. John Brown was killed, executed maybe like 1857, somewhere around there, maybe 59. The war started in 1861. The Union Army sang songs about him, and it was allowed to have a curriculum around John Brown up until maybe the 1900s. Then they started saying that John Brown was crazy. They backed up from that. They never had any songs, anybody to sing a song about Nat Turner. There were songs written about him. You can find them on old slave books, old slave narratives. They have poems and stuff about Nat, but they were quiet. They were in slave quarters. They didn't sing him out loud. You know, they knew about him. They heard about him. So anyway, what I'm saying is that John Brown has a and I apologize for chopping this up like this, but
This is
John
beautiful. You
Brown has.
flowing.
Excuse me.
I said, nah, wrap your point up. I said, this is beautiful. You actually flowing. You dropped a lot of wisdom, but nah, wrap your point up.
So when you ask what other programs I did regarding that, I'm going to say, well, I was always talking about Nat with a few men, you know, but doing it in a class, I think I didn't start that till maybe like in the late 70s, you know, and I didn't have a curriculum around him. Then I decided to do a curriculum around him, and they wouldn't allow that. So it was like kind of a subversive move to even talk about Nat Turner and was doing in a liberal prison, in a prison where the doors are open for almost anything but that. So I developed I don't know how the idea came to me, but to do a contest, and I put Nat's name there without putting it. I call it a prophet. It's called the prophet and the dragon. The prophet being Nat Turner, because a lot of slaves considered Nat a prophet. And you know, when you get into his life, you see that he was a prophet. I'll return to that in a minute. It's called The Prophet and the Dragon. The dragon was George Jackson. I had to hide his name too. That's the name that George gave himself, the dragon. He was into a lot of martial arts, etc., whatever, right? So he referred to himself as the dragon. So when I did the quiz and we gave like commissary for the winners who could figure out who these people were, somebody else got wind of it, and I had to hide that, so I changed it to the wizard and the dragon. The wizard being George Washington Carver, because of what he did at Tuskegee. But in my heart, I felt bad that I couldn't put Nat there. I wanted to put Nat there. You know, I think I probably did the best thing, because I would not have been allowed to complete that program had I continued like that. They would have thought I was trying to stir up something in the joint. I was not trying to stir up anything in the joint other than a consciousness. I felt that that was needed. Because if we feel that the most aggressive thing we ever did was throw punches at a white man, then, you know, we would never have the intellectual or emotional wherewithal to do anything else. Richard Pryor had a joke about black people being scared of white people, and said a cracker could come in a black neighborhood and tell a black guy, unball your fist, nigga. You know, like in a way, I'll tell you when to get angry, unball your fist. You know, and I should think about that with Nat. That's what they did. Unball your fist. Throw Nat Turner out of your consciousness. So that that um that contest, um, the wizard and the dragon, or the prophet and the dragon. Initially, it was the prophet and the dragon. Was an attempt to discuss Nat Turner in a meaningful conversation. That's like it's a harmless quiz. Who is this in Black history? And surprisingly, only a few people got it. And they studied a long time. So they were doing this quiz lasted weeks. Every time we did it, it was weeks. They were looking at things and ain't nobody said, who's the prophet? We didn't have no prophets, which leads me to this. The Middle East thinks, and I'm talking about Muslims and Christians alike, who have shared the Quran and the Bible as a belief system. They think they got a monopoly on prophets. You know, so when we say a prophet over here, they say that's heresy. Muslims have dropped out of my classes because I refuse to stop calling that turn on prophet. And say, well, say he was a spokesperson, say he was a leader. Don't say we didn't know prophets because they believe that the last of the prophets was 1,400 years ago. And he was the seal of the prophets. When we look at African history in the United States, we see several people in the 1800s who fit the mold of prophets. And ironically, another one was named Turner, Bishop Turner. Um, a lot, maybe like, I'm going to say maybe like 8 people look exactly like the biblical prophets, not look in appearance in terms of what they did. And they weren't just talking, they were toting guns, leading wagon trains west and shooting white men and talking about it. And white people knew not to mess with them. If you didn't come with a crew, don't mess with you. You can't run up on them with 3 or 4 people in that wagon train asking where they're going. Don't mess with them. You know, of course, at some point they were contested uh, and denied land, etc. Even though the land was supposed to be free if you went to homestead it and whatnot, right? But they started their own homesteads and whatnot, right? They were brazen like that. And they always used the Bible, put the Bible as uh, a roadmap to inspire them. But they saw the prophets as being, they saw the messengers and the prophets in the Bible as being black, you know, which Nat did. When Nat read the Bible, he predicted a civil war. When he looked at the dark clouds and white clouds, he would tell other slaves, there's going to be a war. This is 30 years before the Civil War. There's going to be a war. It's going to come to a head. Black and white, those clouds are significant. They just not up there for show. The Lord put them up there for a reason. It's a vision. He had the vision that there's going to be bloodshed. When you read about Rochelle McGee, who was one of the co-defendants of George
I
with
say,
the Soledad brothers, you
I
know,
say,
he used to sign his letters, Blood in My Eye. And George did too for a while. In fact, one of George's books is called Blood in My Eye. That's a direct quote, or come not a quote, but an inspiration that comes from Nat Turner because in one of his visions he saw blood on corn in the fields, blood on the corn. He said that's because it's coming. This is a few years before his rebellion. He denied those visions a few times. He didn't want to do it until he had the vision. He said he heard the Lord tell him, you know, you about this world. You're not the world, and you're not about the world I'm telling you about. I'm kind of chopping this up, but you can read this in the Confessions of Nat Turner in his own words, what he said, the visions that he had. So not only was he black in consciousness, he was precocious. You know, he could pick up things other people didn't see. You know, he looked up, he saw everything was black and white. Everything was about the slave need to revolt. You know, so I'm happy that in fact I'm ecstatic that I found out about Nat and that I'm doing a little bit to try to carry on his name, to try to preach that consciousness. When I say H.O.L.L.A uses the term resurrection. You know, they greet each other resurrection. Uh, when they part, they say resurrection. And I love that. I know where it comes from. I love that. But I like to add to it. When I say resurrection, when I hear them say resurrection, I think about the resurrection of Nat Turner, you know, and not so much Nat with a gun. You know, as people would say, all that's left is a choice of weapons. So you could be Nat with a typewriter. You could be Nat with a briefcase. You could be Nat with a pen, but you got to do the work. You can't sit by and let other people do that work for you. You don't have to be, you know, shoot out your window at police and whatnot, right? Shoot with your typewriter, shoot with your computer, you know, but make it count. And we don't use those. We got those tools, we don't use them. You know, we think that to talk about things like this is like it's foolhardy. It's not going to happen. We might as well not stop talking about it because it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen because we don't do it. You know, somebody's made the point that we need to be the change that we want to see, and that's it. You know, change on that computer. You got computer skills. You do programs or something. Want to write? Do programs for black kids. Black learn the code black. We don't do that. Nat learned the code black without the never. Of course, didn't know what a computer was. Of course, not nobody knew what a computer was then, but he knew how to code black. He used the Bible, all those characters in the Bible. He turned them into black men. You know, he didn't see Egypt as a white entity or a Middle Eastern entity. He saw Egypt as a black place. You know, the proud people coming out of Egypt, etc. When I write, you saw the Egyptians and their circumstances as being a black circumstance. I don't know if I'm making that clear.
Clear as possible, clear as possible.
Okay.
Thank you for breaking down a lot of wisdom, man. You done talked about the connection to the Civil War. You talked about Nat as a spiritual leader of the Black community. You talked about the inspiration to George Jackson, John Brown. You also talked about how you continue teaching that even in, you know, these colonial domestic cages of prison. And the importance of, you know, teaching that history. And you said that you learned about Nat from street corner orators. I would assume in
Yes,
Harlem too.
yes, in Harlem. Yes, I forgot to say that in Harlem. Yeah, in Harlem.
And
Let me
that,
say this.
go ahead.
Oh, don't forget your point. Let me say this. I forgot this. Uh, when I say Harry Beecher Stowe and John Brown are given credit for being sparks of the Civil War, isn't it ironic that both of them say that they were inspired by Nat Turner 30 years before that, and him predicting a war between black and white, but they won't give him credit for starting the Civil War, initiating the Civil War. But you give two people who understudied him, give them credit. I'm not saying anything negative about Harry Beecher Stowe. I'm not saying anything negative about John Brown. I tell you how I feel about John Brown. But why can you give a student, so to speak, credit and not give the teacher credit? All the inspiration. Nobody had done anything like Nat Turner before that time. Yeah, there were other slave rebellions, there were other white people killed, but it was small. You know, maybe like a dozen people might have been killed. They kill a dozen white people and kill 40 or 50 black people. And they did the same thing with Nat. You know, after the Turner Rebellion, they killed scores of innocent black people, you know, because of course, um, the goal was to so thoroughly intimidate the rest of the slaves that you wouldn't even think about picking up a gun or a stick or anything about against white people, you know. And in fact, after that, it was against the law for white people. They could go to jail be whipped for teaching black people how to read and write after Nat Turner. They made laws in Virginia, then they spread to other slave states. Don't teach a nigga how to read. They're not as docile as we thought they were. This nigga found out a way to use the Bible, something we thought would be a taming, an instrument to contain them. He found it to be an instrument for rebellion, to inspire him to rebel. So don't teach another nigga how to read.
On that same note, so there's people not talking about Nat Turner, and then there's people who talk about Nat Turner but share false narratives and intentionally mislead people or rewrite Nat Turner. And I
Yeah.
know you talked about to us, and there's work around Dr. John Henry Clark, Ancestor, and others doing some corrective work around people misleading people around false narratives related to Nat Turner. You really want to also come here and talk about a play going on in Harlem called Nat Turner's Last Struggle, which you feel is similar, another rewrite of Nat Turner's legacy and history. Do you want to share some information about this play and what's your analysis on that play? And what's your experience leading up to how you get that analysis about this play?
Okay, well, a friend of mine told me about the play last year. He said a play was coming by a friend of his. He was a friend of the playwright. Um, and he said, when he said it, I said, I don't want to see that because I have never seen anything on that. They did him any justice. They said, no, he said, no, this brother is really into history. He's done plays and stuff before. He's written for movie stars, etc. When I write, um, he's good. He's good. You're gonna like this. So, taking his advice, I went to the play last year around this time, on November 9th. I went to the play. It was at the Riverside Theater, which is in the Columbia University area. And I bought a $40 ticket. Tickets were priced from $40 down to like 15 or 20. I bought the $40 ticket because I wanted to be up front. Okay, when I sat up front, I was the only one sitting up there with 4 rows in back of me, 4 rows with an aisle in between, and nobody else was sitting in those seats. Everybody else was in like the latter, I'm going to say like the latter 10 rows. And there might have been maybe like 150 people in there at the time. Most of them looked like college students. I'm going to say about 150 people. Most of them were college students who were encouraged to go by their professors, go see this play. When I saw the play, when the play unfolded, I was immediately discouraged. I saw that I'd been tricked. You know, not intentionally. I don't think my friend did it intentionally because he don't really know nothing about Nat Turner. But they depicted Nat. Nat was depicted as what I'm going to call a postmortal being. After his death, he was talking to angels about whether he did the right thing or not. He was in question. He was in doubt as to whether or not his rebellion was justified, killing so many people. And he's agonizing, like almost to the point of crying. And then, which is a total distortion of Nat's attitude. You know, so when I saw that, I wanted to get up and leave, but I sat there. And at the end of the show, the playwright came on the stage and he indicated that, hold on, someone, we got some competition. He came on stage and he said he got the idea for the play comes from a book. The book was being written by a white woman from Virginia, and she was in the audience. She came up to see the premiere of this play. Can y'all hear that noise in the background?
You good? You good?
Okay. So he said that, you know, the person who wrote the play is in the audience, and he asked her to stand up, and the audience clapped for her. Of course, I didn't. And then he took questions from the audience. I didn't want to be disruptive. You know, I'm still kicking myself in the behind for not doing this. I didn't want to be disruptive, so I said, I'm gonna talk to this guy afterwards. So I went to the stage with he was stooping down on the stage, and some other people were talking to him, and so I wait till they back away, and I never got that opportunity because he was distracted to do something else. So when I came out, before I came out, I talked to some students. I asked them if they knew anything about Nat Turner before they came. They said no. Most of them. I only talked to about 6 or 7 students, just randomly. You know, I talked to 6 or 7 at one time, then randomly several others at 1 or 2 at a time. And they said no, they never saw anything or heard anything about Nat Turner. 1 or 2 said they knew it, they heard the name, but they didn't really know about him. So I gave them some references how they could read some facts about Nat and told them that the play was a farce. And they looked at me in shock. And I said, Nat Turner was nothing like this. Don't be misled by that. If you really want to know who Nat Turner is, read these books. And I gave him some references. I even wrote some of them down for them on their pads. When I came out, me and my friend were coming out, and I said, I want you to tell your friend that I need to talk to him. I'd like to talk to him about the play. And he said, okay, what's wrong? And I told him, I said, what's wrong? I said, you didn't see that? He said, no, it was pretty good. I said, what are you talking about? It was pretty good. That's how little he knew about Nat. Because he was talking about the lead character's ability to act like he was crying, his ability to act. I'm talking about what he was acting about, the story that he was telling. So anyway, he took it to the playwright. And he told me a couple of weeks later, I said, did you tell him? He said, I told him a couple of times. He said, he don't do that. I said, don't do what? He said, he don't discuss criticisms of his work. I said, did you tell him what I said? You know, because it was obvious that the person playing Nat and the director, neither of them had read anything about Nat Turner. They were only using a woman's book, what she said. And the whole play was based on her distortion, her fantasy about Nat. So when he said that, I told him like 3 or 4 times after that, you know, tell your friend I want to talk to him. He said, he's not going to do it. I told him, he said he don't do that. He's not going to go back and do that. But he's going to try to come back again next year, which is now. So this time he's got a better actor, somebody who has some Hollywood background, because I think he was using students at the play. He's got somebody with a Hollywood background playing Nat Turner tonight and tomorrow. At any rate, he said he wasn't going to do that. So my feelings are that it needs to be protested, you know. And I told him when he first told me this maybe like 2 months ago that it's coming back. I said, let him know if it comes back, he's going to be embarrassed because I'm going to do everything I can to expose it. He said, he started to laugh. He said, he don't care, he got money for the players, finance, etc. When I write, he did a lot of work, and when I write, he's not going to do it. So here we are. This is the first night of the rerun for the play. And I don't know if he's changed any of the script. I'm assuming that he hasn't. That's an assumption on my part because I heard um, the interview that you sent me, Corey, with him talking, being interviewed by what, WBGO? You there, Corey?
Yes, he was in an interview. This is Kurt Stewart play the Nat Turner's Last Struggle, right? Once again, it was written from a book by a white woman from the South. And yes, maybe Isaac could put that link in the chat. It's a video WBGO posted it yesterday. It only has 22 views on it.
It had what?
It only has 22 views on it. So not too many people have seen it.
Good, good. Oh, okay. So what I heard, I didn't listen to all of it, but what I heard is him questioning Nat Turner's humanity, saying that, he killed a little girl, a girl that he knew personally before the rebellion, a little girl, a slave owner's child, that during the rebellion, she was killed. So he questioned Nat's humanity, like, how could you kill children, a little girl? So, I mean, if that's all that you can find about Nat that you want to talk about, that's the thing that's most prominent in your mind. I think Nat was in the total war. Slavery was total. They didn't tell black people, I'm not gonna enslave your child. I just want the adults. Or they didn't tell the men, I'm not gonna enslave your wife and your children. We just want men to work. They wanted all of us, a total family, everybody. So when you're at war, why not? Just like they want to make a statement when slaves rebel by killing them publicly and other slaves seeing them. Some of the stories about slaves, pregnant women, the bellies being cut open, and they take the baby out and kill it in front of other slaves. And when I write, just to put that fear in them. Some of us still have that fear. Some of us said that there's a slave residue, that kind of terror, that kind of residue still in us. Let me fast forward to something. Keep it on that for a minute. Let me fast forward to something. There was a guy who shot some people on the train during the 80s, shot some white people on the train during the 90s. The Long Island train is a black guy. He just opened up and started shooting people. His trial was on, I forgot his name now. His trial was on for maybe like 2 weeks. They kept talking about it every day. So I'm on a gallery, I'm incarcerated, I'm locked up at the time. I'm on a gallery where everybody's looking at the program every night. They're giving updates on it. So I used to hear guys say, killers, in there for slinging and shooting people.
Is that Colin Ferguson?
Colin Ferguson, exactly. That's his name, Colin Ferguson. And it reminds me too that I said if I got out, I was going to look out for him. I was going to send him packages and what. I have not done that. I'm going to do that. I'm glad you gave me his name again. But anyway, he defended himself at trial, and he wasn't doing a good job. But and as you can see that something was wrong with him or whatnot, right? But people used to say, that nigga crazy. They shoot them people like that nigga crazy. These are guys that shot 3 or 4 black people in Queens and the Bronx or wherever, and they considered serious Negroes because they would shoot any individual they think is warranted of that. Here go a guy that shoots white people because he thought they were deserving of it, and we say he's crazy for doing it. And when I question him about it, sometimes my emotions get the best of me. I stood up. Peace. I stood up and said during the commercial and said, "Why y'all say he crazy? Well, y'all shoot black people, but you ain't crazy." When you talk about shooting black people, you say, "I caught a body," like it's just circumstantial. Like what you here for? I caught a body last year. I caught a body in Queens. I caught a body in Brooklyn. Like it ain't nothing. But here's the guy that shoots white people, and everybody in here is laughing at him. You find it funny, or find him repulsive because he killed white people. If he just shot some black people like that over some drugs, you would say that nigga is serious. He don't take he don't take no prisoners. But somebody who shoots white people is automatically deemed crazy. Now, all these guys in the day room, they don't consider themselves Negroes. These guys consider themselves thugs. You know, they'll tell you, looking at, and they'll fight you at the drop of a hat. But they couldn't find anything interesting in Colin Ferguson because he shot a white man, because he shot white people. Now, when they said he was crazy, this is really the really crazy part to me. There were people on the train that said, I will never forget his face because he started shooting. He had an automatic weapon. He started shooting. Some people grabbed him and took the gun out of his hand and went all right. So he didn't have any fingerprints on the gun. They could not prove.
Hey
Y'all
Bob,
there?
you still there? Yeah, we still here.
Yeah, yeah. They could not prove
We
that
got
he
like
shot
five, we got like
anybody.
six, we got like 6 minutes left too, but you were saying that he had no fingerprints on the gun.
He had no fingerprints on the gun, so they couldn't prove that he did it. You know, there's just people saying that I'll never forget him. Uh, and when they questioned his lawyer, when he questioned people, they said they ran to him with his head down, with their heads down, and grabbed his arm, grabbed whatever they could grab. Other people said, I will never forget his face. I stared him in the face when he's shooting. Now, how likely is that? Somebody's shooting randomly in your direction and you staring at somebody in the face. That your instinct is going to tell you to duck. You know, so uh, that lie carried favor with the jury and carried favor with his peers, with Colin Ferguson's peers, with men already incarcerated for killing people that you think somebody busting a gun and you just stand there looking at them. They shooting in your direction. You ain't ducking enough. You just staring them in the eye. It was a lie. Of course it was a lie. Even if he did do it, like take it to Nat, even if Nat did kill women and children, which the record shows that women and children were killed, it was total war. Just like it was total slavery. And I respect him for that. If you're going to fight, be decisive, you know, so intimidate people. So the other slaveholders, which he did, other slaveholders were very reluctant to do things with their slaves that they were doing beforehand. Some of them became more strenuous in their disciplining slaves, uh, more harsh, keeping them apart, etc. When I right, that's collateral damage. That happens in war, you know. So I don't blame Nat for that. His intent was good, like John Brown's intent was good. It just didn't happen. His intent was to go to the armory, which ironically, the armory was in they changed the name of it now. It was called Jerusalem. You know about that, Corey. You were in Virginia. It used to be called Jerusalem, and that was the county seat. So it's ironic that here's a biblical person, um, a person influenced by the Bible, trying to get to a place called Jerusalem because that's where the arsenal was. That's where the guns were. All right, Quan, I'm
Ashay,
stopping. You said we got a couple minutes. I'm stopping.
yeah, Ashay, man. Now shout out to that history, man. And Nat Turner is connected to the Maroons, man. Gable Prosper, Denmark Vesey, and the Maroons of America. Like you said, it was total war. So part of how we got to off the plantation is because it wasn't just the plantation; it was their family members, the neighborhoods that they was from, the businesses. So the Maroons attacked all of those communities and
Yes,
it made white people feel unsafe to co-sign slavery and to be a part of enslaving Africans. And if you was in the town, if you was nearby, you was part of that process. And that process is what led to the state realizing that we got to do something about these people that we enslaving. And we got to that leads to a lot of the psychological warfare of acting like they freed us off the plantation and started building other psychological plantations. But they knew at that time that they couldn't just keep those chains on us.
yes. And let me
Um,
say this. Let me say this to add up to end this quickly. Um, George George Jackson was really Nat's spiritual son because when he got the gun in the joint, he just wasn't talking. You know, like 5 people died that day. He killed 5 people that day. A couple of jailhouse Uncle Toms and snitches and whatnot, and the police. He didn't hesitate to shoot them. You know, it wasn't like he got a gun, I'm going to shoot if y'all don't let me out or such a whatever. He killed them. You know, so he wasn't bullshitting. All the stuff they talked about, he did. And one of his quotes is, I think his fondest quote is like, for me, is that I might only have 5 seconds to live, but I'm going to live them on my terms. So, and that's exactly what he did, you know.
I want
All
to
right,
just,
listen,
I want to
I
just,
apologize to y'all for chopping this up like this. I hear myself going on a tangent back and forth and
nah,
whatnot,
this
right?
is,
But
Baba, you did good, man. You did good, man. Can I read your letter and
Yes,
then
you
we'll
can.
close out with
Yeah.
that?
Yes.
So we want to read this letter, man, and end up with some actions that y'all could do. Baba just dropped a lot of wisdom about Nat Turner. This video could be archived, man. People need to do research on this video alone. I think you provided a lot of details. And Baba wrote a press release that we would need everybody to share. It should be up on the screen, and it's talking about the desecration and the crucifixion of Nat Turner. So last week marked 194 years since the physical execution of Nat Turner on November 11th, 1831, for initiating the largest slave rebellion in American history. This week, he will be executed again today, tomorrow, this time under the guise of a play entitled Nat Turner's Last Struggle. And that's why we're having this event today, the special report. Baba Hassan said, I was invited to see this play last year by a friend who knows the playwright. At the time, he knew nothing about the content, but knew that I was a student of history with a profound appreciation of Nat Turner. The play was horrific, completely fictional, and blatantly disrespectful. It portrayed Nat as a postmodern being in a spiritual quandrum, agonizing over the rebellion and begging for forgiveness, presumably at the gates of heaven. Nothing could be further from the character of Nat Turner, as Baba explained earlier today. Conversely, he was an unapologetic rebel and unflinching in his belief that his rebellion was not only justified, but like Baba said, it was ordained by God. You know, he was a prophet. He had visions about this. After his capture, he was asked now how he felt about himself. His reply was that he felt the same way George Washington did when he rebelled against England. There was not the slightest hint of regret or remorse in his response, despite the fact that he was responsible for taking the lives of more than 50 enslavers, slave owners, and their families. Nat was a literate, highly intelligent preacher and considered to be a prophet by other enslaved people or slaves. He predicted the Civil War 30 years before its occurrence and was the inspiration for the abolitionists John Brown and Harriet Beecher Stowe, both of whom are given credit for sparking the Civil War, as Baba mentioned earlier. Not to mention the remarkable George Jackson, whose actions sparked the Attica Rebellion and the modern prison reform. You know, Baba Hassan is connected to the work, a lot of work that went on in Green Haven after the Attica Rebellion. And a lot of the modern prison reform could be directly tied to Baba Hassan as well, and Larry Lukman White, Eddie Ellis, the Green Haven think tank. And they saying that they pulling on a legacy that came before them, George Jackson, you know, that all the way goes back to Nat Turner. Let me get back to the letter. Sorry, we run out of time. Let me get back to the letter. Such was the fear of Nat Turner that the federal government sent 2 warships and 3 regiments to support his influence in Southampton area. Today, fearful people produce demeaning books, plays, and movies designed to undermine his memory. The perverted idealization for the current attempts derives from a novel with the same name as the play, written by a Southern white woman and transformed into a play by 2 Black men who have been conditioned or paid not to understand their role in the mockery of a Black hero like Nat Turner. This is more than an execution. It is a crucifixion under the cover of art and the literally license to do so. Right? Baba is asking, the important question here is exactly who benefits from this kind of artwork and other distorted portrayals of Nat Turner. Who benefits from this? Right? Are they the descendants of the people he wanted to free? Or are those who feared that the truth would be an inspiration to those descendants? Right? That's a serious question. Who benefits from counterinsurgency of our legacy strategies? when white man science steal our ideas and our practices and our teachings and use counterinsurgency to retell those stories to socialize our people into different practices and different realities. Who benefits from that? Through my friend, this is Baba going back to his letter. Through my friend, I attempted to reach out to the playwright last year with the hopes that he would reconsider some of the negative effects of the play. He refused the opportunity. Hence, why we are doing this event. Hence, why we wrote this public statement. Hence, why Baba is asking the public to boycott and protest this farce, right? This play, this disgrace, this disrespect of Nat Turner. The play is scheduled to start today, February 21st at 8 p.m. Eastern Time at Riverside Church. It's a lot of work that our modern prison abolition, prison reform movement did at Riverside Church. Right? And the second showing is tomorrow at Riverside Church at 3 p.m. And the third showing is tomorrow at Riverside Church at 8 p.m. Baba Hassan will be at the front of the church, all three showings. Baba Hassan will be passing out these flyers in his press release and letting folks know the disrespect that this play is doing. And we asking that community members come outside, show up, support this, send this video to other members, send the flyer. If you can come out for a couple of hours on one of the time shows to support Baba Hassan, bring some signs and come through. Baba Hassan, we have held Isaac up a little bit longer than we wanted to. Any closing words that you want to say before we wrap up?
No, I'm good. Thank you for this opportunity, both of you. Thank you for this opportunity. And again, I apologize for being so choppy tonight, but I hope I got my point across, and I hope you guys can appreciate it. I hope the audience, whoever they are, appreciates this and will participate in the protest. If you don't do no more than write letters, to the radio station WBGO, so that guy won't go even get the opportunity to go on there again, and maybe even to the theater. You think it's a tragedy to have be so disrespectful for a Black hero like that. Even though we know that they're part of the process, they don't mind. They give a person like that or a production like that can always find an audience. But again, thanks. And let's resurrect Nat Turner.
Ashe, resurrect Nat Turner. Thanks a lot, Baba. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for dropping wisdom. I wish you could have talked about some of the fast in the personal resurrection work you do around Nat Turner. If you could say something in 30 seconds about just the fast you do, or why the fast is important, or just how you develop that fast, but I think it's important that, you already dropped a lot of wisdom about Nat Turner, but I think, that also would just close us out, in a good way, but also letting people know how important Nat Turner is to you, that you even consider a fast for your own personal development and resurrection.
Yeah, well, my fast starts like the night, August 21st, the night of the rebellion, and lasts up until November 11th. I fast in different ways, depending on what I thought Nat was doing at that time, during the night of the rebellion, those 2 nights, during his odyssey in the woods, and October 30th to November 11th, what it must have been like for him, being surrounded by white people who wanted to kill him immediately, chop him up and kill him immediately, and having a mock trial, just sitting in there waiting for his death and knowing that there was no escape. And all the slaves rebelled. It didn't get it. He must have been going through a lot. So when I fast, I think about what he was going through that before I eat that day. Think about how lucky I am. You got all the means to rebel around. You can rebel 1,000 ways. He had one way or 2 ways or whatever, right? He exercised them. So it must be for the spirit of Nat, or the soul of Nat, to look at us now and see what we are not doing and have the capacity to do, not just Nat, our ancestors, period. Some of them must be horrified, must feel like we did all that for this. Look at our children. Look at our children. So it's the fast has to be like any ritual for me. The fast has to be related to reality. So I try to put myself in that situation. How I would feel. I know it's hard to do that. You know, I've been a fugitive before, but I was a fugitive in relatively luxury compared to what Nat was. You know, so it's a whole new process. Whole new process now.
Ashe. Well, that's a good way to close. Thank everybody for tuning in. Free the land, all our political prisoners, and continue following the work of our elders and our legacy, and continue resurrecting yourself. And shout out to H.O.L.L.A, shout out to our family members, and once again, shout out to Isaac Quarterly for holding us down. Baba, hope you have a good day outside protesting, and I hope the people come out and support you. Peace, everybody.
Yes, I'm standing here with a brother now, and I'm on my way. I got to get some more stuff done from UPS, and then I'm headed there to meet the Surrey.
Ashe, resurrect. Peace, everybody.
Peace.
We was born into a system designed to keep us behind, but knowledge is power, keep that in mind. Pay attention to the road and the signs. You gon' shine, you gon' know when it's time. We was born into oppression, threw us in them jails, waist deep in depression. Art of deception, knowledge is a weapon. They even took that away, it costs for a lesson. School prices go up, kids don't show up, gang signs get thrown up, progression getting slowed up. Politicians speak on it, they acting like they know us. They just wanna control us with the lies that they told us. And I don't stand for it. Every other day, got a body on the camcorder, and we don't get no damn order. And Flint ain't get no damn water. On the gram, watch another black man slaughtered. Either that or the can, they had a plan for it. They stopped slavery and opened prisons, and we all know religion causes division. You gotta see the vision and make a decision. Grew up in the streets, so the mission, they know that I'm with it. I feel like Nat Turner on the back burner, waiting for my time to rise. Started on the crack corner. We ain't have nothing but a pack on us. Police spin the block, they was trying to snap on us. Mama rent due, he try and get that stack for. But D's caught him round the corner with that crack on him.
Through the hell and rain, heard him say it won't be the same. Reason why we praise, cause we know we'll find better days. Soaring the heaven gates, and we won't be late. Soaring the heaven gates, and we won't be late.
Hey yo, I'm numb to the pain, scarred by the game, reminiscing on them days like a slave locked in a cage. It's real, I just write how I feel, represent for the youngest, cause I know how they feel. All them nights, no meals, you just mad that your tummy aches, so you on the streets grinding, try and get another plate. I know, I was right there selling sour, trying to save money for some studio hours.
Through the hell and rain, heard him say it won't be the same. Reason why we praise, cause we know we'll find better days. Soaring the heaven gates, and we won't be late. Soaring the heaven gates, and we won't be late.
What you know about taking losses? If the defense clip your mans, you gotta change your offense. Enslaved people still line, it's just a different auction. Switch the whips, the nightsticks, a metal guarded fortress. Every block stay cautious, spiritually it gets me nauseous. Fighting off darkly forces, knowing to press my conscience. Knowing this life ain't awesome, skips what's important. Crack came in handing every black person a coffin. Fear to lay my offspring, I see death often. Babies having babies, government will preach abortion. 1 meal a day, I portion like 3 courses. To break it down, Chuck Norris, you gotta be a tourist. We adapt and fit resources. Watch our kids, we passing torches. If we ever get endorsements, fuck them up on college courses. Yes, the process metamorphed this legacy to only fortune. Jealousy is not important. What for all to split our portions?
I'm just trying to stay alive. I'm just trying to survive.